My guest today is the co-founder of Kaya, an ayahuasca healing center located in the South American country of Peru. Additionally, she helps run a nonprofit that serves the local communities by purifying drinking water, sponsoring bilingual schools, and implementing reforestation programs. I'm blessed to have her on the show today. Please welcome a genuinely kind-hearted soul, Jill Levers. Jill, how are you?
I'm really good, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you for joining me.
Mhm.
Before we get started with your background, like I always like to do, can you first actually just dive into what is ayahuasca? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening right now or watching and they have no idea. So explain that, and then we'll get into your background.
Yes. So ayahuasca is such a beautiful medicine. And so it is a vine and it's a holistic medicine. It's a traditional master teacher plant that grows in the Amazon jungle of South America. And the scientific name is Banisteriopsis caapi. And it is brewed with leaves that come from a shrubby bush, which are called the chacruna leaves, the Psychotria viridis. And this contains dimethyltryptamine. So the two, when combined together and cooked down over several hours and often several days, it it blends into a brew that you drink. And it's
Okay.
for all types of healing physical ailments, mental, psychological issues, emotional issues, and really expands the spiritual journey and life path that one is on.
Great. And how did you how did you discover DMT? Like now we can tell us your background, how you discovered it, what got you started, why did you start the center, and yeah, let's hear it.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a story, and I'm kind of just going to back up to even when I was a child and in my adolescence. So, I was originally raised Christian, and I definitely felt a connection with spirit, with God. But the dogma surrounding religion never resonated with me, and I
Mhm.
decided to leave the church even at 13 years old because I was using my own discernment and it just didn't resonate with me. So then I found myself on a path of discovering. And as I got into my teens and my early 20s, I just was really partying a lot. I was experiencing lots of different psychedelics, also drinking heavily, and just getting into lifestyle habits that ultimately weren't serving my highest good. And
Mhm.
yet all the time I was still seeking, doing yoga, doing a lot of studies with philosophy and starting to get into that new age movement. But I just found myself in a depression that I was not able to get myself out of. I felt I was seeking something bigger, seeking to know more of what source was, our existence, why we were here on this planet. And so I was in my late 20s and I found myself at a sweat lodge here in Arizona. And the man leading the sweat lodge was telling us about these trips he did to Peru, taking small groups to experience something called ayahuasca. And it was interesting that I hadn't really heard about it before because I had done all types of other entheogens, but
Yeah.
it's meant to, come into your life when it's meant to. So he was starting to tell us about all the healing properties that ayahuasca has and just about how it can really expand your consciousness and how it's just a very beautiful spiritual medicine. And as he was telling us, I just knew instantly this is what I need to do. And this is the next step on my own path in life. And 4 months later, I found myself deep in the Amazon jungle. So it was a small group of us, and we didn't go to a retreat center. The trip was actually planned to take a boat downriver and camp in three different spots and drink the medicine each consecutive night.
Yeah.
So, back in 2007, this was, about 13 years ago. I mean, there was information out there about ayahuasca, but it was very minimal compared to what there is today.
Right.
And so I did as much research as I could, but you can only prepare yourself so much. And I didn't ultimately know what I was really getting myself into. I just was like, oh, it's going to be this spiritually eye opening experience. But when I got there and I did my first ceremony, it was the most difficult and excruciating experience I had ever had. And the medicine was working very, very deeply in my body. And it was very scary at the same time. And
Mhm.
yet I also knew that I was needing to surrender to the process. But it was my first experience and I didn't have anything to compare it to. So by the next night came around and, I built up my courage to do it again and had a completely different experience than the first night. And yet it was just as challenging in different ways. But that night, I really began to see and feel how it was an actual medicine.
Mhm.
My purging process was getting really, really intense. The visions were coming through really intensely. And as I would go through a process of feeling deep fallacies of like the conditioning of my upbringing come up to the surface, I would purge these out and I could see how it was actually healing not only my body, but my mind and my emotional and psychological state.
Wow.
So it was profound on all levels. And it felt like I was in the medicine for a good 25 hours. I was in it. And it lasted all night long. And by the third night, I really didn't think I could do the last ceremony. It was the last two were so intense. And so I decided to back out. And everyone on the group drank except for me. And then about 20 minutes into it, I was like, what am I doing? I didn't come down here for nothing. This
Uh,
is what I came here for. And I took my dose and had the most profound and beautiful night of my entire life. And I ended up going through a death experience, which can be very typical with the ayahuasca experience. And
okay.
I was standing up at the time and I felt myself starting to die. And my friend that was with me saw all these white lights floating around my head. And I collapsed to the ground and I found myself in the womb again, in the womb of Mother Earth, in the womb of the jungle. It was the most nurturing and loving state I've ever felt myself in to this day, that I didn't want to come out of it. But eventually the medicine was like, okay, it's time to birth out of this and start a new life ahead of you. And later in the night, I ended up having what I would call a Kundalini awakening, where I had all the energy shooting up through my spine, out through the crown of my head. And it was the most blissful and ecstatic experience that I've ever had. So, I mean, there was so much more wrapped up in all those three ceremonies, but it really showed me, like, with the determination and the surrender and the faith and the experience, how much could be healed in such a short amount of time and how much expansion could also be reached in such a short amount of time. And so I came out of those three ceremonies just never knowing I could reach those levels of expansion in consciousness, even in this lifetime. You hear of these gurus meditating for decades on end, and here I am being able to experience something very similar to what that could be achieved in that amount of time. Um, so after the three ceremonies, we went back to a lodge on the lake in Pucallpa, Peru, and my friend suggested, hey, wouldn't it be great to get some land down here and open an ayahuasca center? And
Ooh.
at the time, I was like, no, no way, that's not for me. And I had a life here in Arizona and doing some things here, um, but I sat with that, and as the integration process, unfolded after that, I was just like, wow, I never knew something like this existed, and if this medicine could do this for me, I mean, my depression was like wiped out, it was gone. And
So so
it
powerful, like a reset.
so powerful. So yeah, 6 months later, I went back to the jungle with some other people and began the process of actually obtaining some land down there and opening our first center, which was called Tierra Vida, which we opened in 2008.
Wow.
So that's a bit of the beginning story of how all of this has unfolded.
Well, it makes a lot of sense now that I've heard that story and that you opened one, having that powerful of an experience on your first time, and I can imagine just wanting to share that with the world, and
Yeah.
and have a facility where people can be comfortable. That's, I was gonna ask you, like, how can you can you explain, like, what is it like under the influence of ayahuasca? Can you I mean, you kinda got into it, but is there any way to explain it more? I know it's difficult to explain from what I've read.
Absolutely. Well, I'll kind of start to weave in how the shamans work because that's
Yeah.
obviously such a pivotal part of this experience. So, in the jungle where we work, we work with the Shipibo tribe, and it's a beautiful culture, just rich with so much history and art and song and dance. And they have been carrying this lineage and wisdom of ayahuasca probably for hundreds, if not thousands of years. There's
Wow.
many different tribes in the Amazon jungles of South America that work with this medicine, but we specifically work with the Shipibo. And so, just to kind of give a little glimpse of how ceremony works. So we have our groups gather in a maloka, which is a ceremonial space. It's a round building. And so we do it at night, so it's dark, so it allows you to go into your visions a little bit easier. So the shaman will do an ikaro or a blessing on the bottle of ayahuasca, and then the dosages get passed out to the participants, and they drink. And it usually takes a good 30 minutes to an hour for the medicine to take effect. So during this time, the shamans will begin to sing their ikaros, and I can go a little bit more in depth about how their songs work. But so as the medicine takes effect, usually you really start to feel it in your body. You feel it almost going into your bloodstream. You know that your temperature rising a little bit.
Mhm.
The visions may start. The visions are definitely a powerful part of the ceremony, but not everyone receives the visions, and it's not the focal part of the ceremony itself. It can just lend to the experience and accentuate the healing process that's taking place. Um, but one of the main parts of ceremony is the purification, which happens through the purging. So ayahuasca is a purgative medicine. It's cleaning
Okay.
out your body. So it will usually start on the physical level. So it's cleaning out your stomach, cleaning out toxins. This can happen usually through vomiting, going to the bathroom, sweating, shaking. The nervous system can be reset. And then it will start to work deeper into the psychological, mental, emotional, and spiritual realms. And so this is where often the visions will become very prominent in
Okay.
one's experience. Um, and often people feel like they're getting downloads, they're getting revelations on specific issues in their life. So many people are coming because of depression or trauma that they haven't resolved. So when we're younger and these traumatic experiences happen to us, they become locked in our cellular structure and often in specific organs in the body, and the subconscious kind of puts them there until a later time when they can be dealt with in a more relaxed or comfortable or supported environment, which is why ayahuasca is a great way to resolve these things, because we actually have to get down to the root of these issues and into the energy itself. This is why often like the Western model of psychology isn't as effective just through talking about it. It's getting into the root of the issue.
Yeah.
So it's you can go into a very deep self like psychoanalysis where you can really reflect on the issues, and the brainwave states change, and so it allows one to access higher dimensional realms and more expansive states of consciousness, which allows like these neural pathways that have been firing in just one way for so long with different or specific belief patterns or habits or what have you, the perception can then change
Okay.
about these things. The traumas get surfaced and purged out, and then new neural pathways then are linked. And this is kind of how the healing process is happening.
Yeah.
So people are coming out with different beliefs about themselves, about life, about existence, how reality works. It's really so beautiful to see, like the magic of what's actually happening in during these states. Because I mean, people are holding on to specific belief patterns for decades, and then they can do one or two ceremonies, and all of a sudden it completely shift. And then that's going to open up new possibilities and opportunities moving forward in life. So again, getting back to like what it's like to be under the influence, it can feel a whole range of things. It can feel very scary at times for people because they don't know how to completely surrender yet or have faith. Often, just that scary feeling is one's own fear coming to surface, because I mean, that's a lot of what is holding us back in life anyway, is our fears. So it's like
Yeah.
letting that fear surface to be released, and then to have different perceptions about how to go forward in life. It can be, again, the visionary state. It can be just very physical and visceral, and it can go to very ecstatic, very divine types of experiences where you're getting downloads from the universe, and
Mhm.
it's really expanding one's consciousness. It's really beautiful.
You mentioned that it can be scary. I've personally considered doing ayahuasca multiple times, and that is something that comes up. I feel it, like, in my palms get sweaty. I have a major fear of it. I've done psychedelics, I've done LSD, and I know what that experience is like, and some people relate ayahuasca to that, but I know it's really different because it's so there's, the shaman behind it, the ritual behind it, the ceremony, the history, like, it's a very healing plant, and it comes from nature. So, uh, uh, honestly, I'm terrified of it, but I wanna do it, I really do. And what would you say to someone who's in my position that is, maybe reluctant to try it, and, like, I guess, what would you say to them? How do you
Yeah, sure.
recommend?
First of all, totally normal and to be expected, like totally normal. I was so scared at first. I mean, pretty much all of our guests have some level of fear or reservation, and it's completely normal. And what I see it as, it's a humble respect to the medicine. Um, there is an aspect of that that's the fear of losing control,
Mhm.
and and that is part of the ceremony itself, is being able to surrender and trust fully in what the medicine is bringing to you and how your healing experience is unfolding. So there's a preparation process that we guide people through in order to, do this experience and to diminish the fear to a certain extent.
Okay.
That will help them relax as they come into ceremony. And this will be a lot with breathing techniques, meditation. Um, we really encourage our guests to do meditation in which they're feeling really deep in themselves what it's like to really truly have faith, and what it's like to truly trust, because that will help so much once you get into ceremony. And it's having a challenging or somewhat scary experience in ayahuasca is somewhat to be expected, and it's very normal. And it's again that part of releasing the deep-seated fear that's really ingrained and submerged in your cellular structure. So once you get out of that, though, once you purge and then you come out of the ceremony the next day and you're like, I just got through that, and it's like such a weight, just lifted off your shoulders, like so much baggage has been released, and you're like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I'm seeing the bigger picture. And so, just have trust that even if, you do go through a challenging experience in ayahuasca, that you're going to come out of it and you're going to come out so much stronger and so much more in your own center. And yeah, it's just going to help you navigate, ceremonies into the future as well.
I can imagine that is probably one of the reasons that you opened the center, was to create an environment that is safe for people to experience ayahuasca, because if you are just in the jungle without any bathrooms or without a safe place to really lay down and not worry about a panther eating you, then, that's probably one of the reasons that you opened the place, I'm guessing, right?
Exactly, it is, and thanks for asking that. I wanted to expand on that, and, for people going, feeling the call to go do ayahuasca, I highly recommend to do a lot of research, and really check out. I really recommend working with indigenous healers,
Mhm.
yet facilitated and bridged by Western people that can help ease the experience and give you more understanding, where there's integration circles where you're allowed to express and talk about your experience. Like we have integration circles after the following day after every ceremony, which is so much gives so much benefit to the participants. And we learn every time we're learning more about how this medicine is working with people. Um, but yeah, to do your research and make sure that the curanderos, the shamans, are really working with integrity. Likewise, the staff, the facilitators, check for reviews on centers. Make sure that there's good and positive reviews, because set and setting is everything. It really
Yeah.
is. If you feel like people are there and they're going to be supporting you, that they're loving and compassionate and empathetic, that changes everything. And I've really noticed that with all of our guests coming through, that because they felt that support from our staff and from our shamans, that they were able to surrender and go deep into their experience. Because my first experience, I was out in the jungle. There was no maloka, no bathrooms. Actually, the facilitators didn't really take care of us at all. And they actually didn't even drink the last ceremony, nor the shamans. They just gave us the medicine and let us go out in the jungle. And it
Wow.
was very, and obviously I didn't have anything to compare it to, but it seemed off. And in hindsight, I feel like it was very irresponsible. So, my goal was to create a center that had, safety as an utmost priority for our guests. And we do medical screenings and the whole bit to make sure everyone will be in the best, circumstance coming into the experience.
And your center has been open since 2008? Since or
Yeah, we had our
two
very first, very small first retreat in 2008. So, I mean,
2008.
I was still in the beginning of my journey with ayahuasca. So it was very slow to begin with. It was very
Mhm.
grassroots. I had a lot of my own healing work to do and integration to do. So I'd say we really started going more full time and having larger groups in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
How big are the groups usually in your center? Like, how many people can you expect to be going through this, healing process or, being at the
Yeah,
retreat?
it's changed over time, and we have taken a little bit more over the years. But since this whole pandemic thing has happened, we've been closed for almost a year now. We're going to be scaling back a little bit, so we'll be taking around 16 guests per
Okay,
retreat.
per
So
retreat.
yeah. Hmm.
And it sounds like your microphone might have just gotten covered up a little bit there. Did you something
Oh,
move? There you go.
wow.
Keep
Can you
that
hear me
keep that
now?
clear. Yeah,
Okay.
that's much better.
Okay.
So when someone can you, like, walk me through what it would be like when you get off the plane in Peru and head to your center? What is someone gonna experience, Walk me through the day-to-day activities there.
Yeah, so we've created a very holistic and dynamic program to support each person on their journey. So it's not just about the ayahuasca ceremonies, but weaving in different modalities that can just accentuate the healing process. So um, once they get there, we give them a great meal to start with. That's in line with the ayahuasca dieta, of course. And we have different programs and different activities through the week, which include yoga. We do different types of meditation, breathing techniques that really help with the ayahuasca experience and staying centered and relaxed during that experience. We do somatic movement. We do floral plant baths the morning after the ceremonies, which helps just rejuvenate the energy and help wash off any excess kind of energy you don't want lingering in your field
Mm,
anymore. We do integration circles. We'll play an ayahuasca documentary on the Shipibo culture down there. We'll do a boat trip down the river to a Shipibo village and just have a very intercultural experience. And and yeah, and what I've seen too, it's the bonding that happens between the guests that is it's so powerfully healing. I mean, everyone is coming with a similar intention to work with ayahuasca, and I feel like a lot of people don't have a similar maybe group of friends or support system wherever they live, and now all of a
mhm.
sudden they get to be around people that have similar beliefs in life and similar values, and that they're just able to really open and be themselves. And we've just created a very home-like environment where people can just feel super comfortable and relaxed, and just be able to have the private time when they need it, and then also be able to share in community when that feels good to them as well.
How many times do you take ayahuasca throughout the week? Is there a set number of times that should get you to heal just right, or is that well, I guess, what do you guys focus on?
Yeah, so over the years, we've done 3 and 4 ceremony retreats. So we feel like 3 is the minimum that you should do for your first time with ayahuasca. And 3 it's a magical number. It's a beginning, middle, end. It is a journey.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I couldn't have imagined doing more than 3 my first time, but over the years, we've done 3 or 4 ceremonies in our retreats. I would say probably to not do over 5 initially, because you can drink too much, and then I think it's almost like you can regress in your experience. And 3 in itself is so much to integrate, and that integration process will be lasting weeks and months, if not years, after the ayahuasca journey.
That's yeah, that's what I've heard, that people have lifelong changes in their outlook on life after doing ayahuasca, even some just doing it once, but
Yes.
from what I've heard is, 3 is like the secret number to really unlocking what you're
Mhm.
looking for, trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Um, so through I guess since 2009, how many people have you seen come through your center?
Good question. It's probably A around 1,000, if not more. I
Wow.
haven't really been counting, but, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Yeah, I'd say probably at least around 1,000 people. So,
I've
yeah, all
seen
those
Go ahead.
just all those people not only doing the work for themselves, but the ripple effect that it has as they go back out into the world, and how it affects their families and some of their friends, and it's a vibratory change, and so it's gonna affect those around them, and I just feel like it's in our center and all the other people that are doing this, they're really bringing about an acceleration that's happening with the awakening process with humanity. So it's really rewarding to be a big part of that process.
Yeah, I can imagine that the seeing all of these light beings, leaving your guys' center, it's just gotta be a really rewarding feeling, and then knowing that there is gonna be a ripple effect because, of course, they're gonna go home and share that enlightening experience and likely change a lot of their habits and, when you start being a better person, the people around you start being better, so it really does have a huge impact on the world.
Mhm. Exactly.
So, well, recently in the last couple of years, ayahuasca has really gained like attention and popularity, and you'll see even places out in California or in New York, more, city-based centers popping up. I know you expressed the importance of like choosing a place that is based with a shaman from the Amazon. What would you say to somebody who's like, "Well, I don't have the time to book a 2-week trip or a 10-day trip to Peru. I'm just gonna do it here in someone's house."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, again, I of course have a bias of going to South America and working with indigenous healers because I feel like they've been carrying this wisdom for so long. Um, but I know a lot of people aren't able to take that time off, or they don't have the economic resources to make that happen. So again, it's doing your research and making sure that whoever is giving the medicine um, comes with high integrity, and that there are positive feedback, that you know people that have already worked with them. They I would say, for anyone to be offering the medicine, that they should have a good 6 to 10 years experience already working with the medicine and doing dietas and really learning the art of healing, because a lot of people can, work with the medicine for a couple years and they know how to play guitar and sing some songs, but I don't feel like that really would validate them as a true healer and to be offering medicine. And so I've heard a lot of stories, actually, of people doing these ceremonies more in the Western world. And I've heard great things and I've heard not good things at all. And, if there are ceremonies where people are driving home in the middle of the night, I would say no. Like, if it just becomes a social event in the middle of the night, and that sacred space isn't continuing to be held, I would say, maybe think again, because I've known people too that have had, gone to ceremonies in the Western world and had really horrible, initial experiences, to the point where they never wanted to do ayahuasca again. Eventually they were like, okay, maybe, yeah, I'll go to the jungle and do it. And then they, come to our place and they're like, oh, I never knew it could be like this. So again, if you could just, if you have that extra time to, save up that extra money, or, just to have that a little bit more patience, I would recommend coming and doing it with the indigenous healers, and in an environment where you're going to be safe and held in a proper way. So,
Yeah, to me, it makes sense. I mean, I would personally want to go and experience it with the shaman, and where it comes from, that it comes from the Amazon, that it comes from that area. To me, it's much more, I thought, well, it would be a much better experience, more sacred to be surrounded by Mother Nature, and having her help you through your healing process.
yeah, being in the home of the plant makes all the difference. And also knowing what's in the brew, that's very important. I mean, we only use ayahuasca and chacruna. We use no other admixtures. And that's also something important to ask, what is in the brew? Because if there's other admixtures, other plants that, you've never worked with, like, it can end up having some effects that aren't really the best for someone working with the ayahuasca for the first time. So.
That's a great point. So there are 2 ingredients, right, to ayahuasca?
There are two, yeah. So the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaves, and so it takes both of them combined to actually give the effects, that
And
the
they
ayahuasca
are
can give.
they're 2 separate plants in the
They
jungle.
are
So
two,
how did the shamans find out that these 2 mixed
exactly.
together before science was ever around?
Yeah, this is the big mysterious question. And so, folklore has it that, the shamans were told, they, in their dream states, they were guided to put the two together. So yeah, there's many different stories, but we've heard that it came in the dream realm to
Okay.
particular healers or curanderos of that time, to bring the two plants together. And there is another leaf as well, another leafy shrubby bush, more up in Ecuador, I believe, the chaliponga. So that can also be used in place of chacruna. But there are other plants that could be mixed in, but I would feel that those brews are more for people apprenticing and doing more specific plant dietas.
Okay. Through Well, I always like to ask this question because it's a podcast on success stories of people, getting healed by alternative medicine. Can you tell us of an amazing or one story that stands out above all the rest from someone you've seen, or even someone that you've read about, but or hopefully somebody that's come through your center, something amazing that's happened and healed. What is one particular story that really stands
I
out?
might have to tell two, but
Okay.
yeah, there's, I mean, again, it's really amazing the level of healing this plant can bring. And like I said before, a lot of people are coming for depression or anxiety or things of this nature, but people are coming for specific physical ailments as well. And there was one gentleman that came, and 6 or 7 years previous, he was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis, which affects the lymph nodes, and it got into his lungs, and his lung capacity was working 20% less than it should have been. And he just had a lot of problems over the years with that. And his very first ceremony, he went through a purging process. The shaman had sung to him, and he was coughing a lot. And then he felt a mass starting to come up from his chest, purged out something the size of a walnut.
What?
It was extremely painful. I mean, the whole process, he said it felt like a good 10 minutes to get this chunk of mass out.
Wow.
And after he purged it out, he took a breath, and he just felt his lungs fill up like never before. He felt like he got a new pair of lungs. And so
Wow.
that autoimmune disease was gone after that. He had had a lot of chronic back pain too. And with the following ceremonies, he was pretty much able to get rid of all of that back pain. So that's one example that stands out. And then
That gave me
another is,
gave me goosebumps.
yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, his testimonials on our homepage if people want to check it out.
Alright.
And then just even last year, this woman came and she had had stage 3 cancer. And so she came and she was so committed. She was such in a surrendering, state, and was in full faith of the medicine. And we also gave her some other remedies to work with, and also after the retreat, but went into complete remission after the
Wow.
retreat. So yeah, I mean, it won't usually get rid of cancer like altogether right then and there. It still is a process, but again, most cases of cancer is linked to some type of psychospiritual issue. And so again, it's getting down to those root issues of the traumas and being able to heal that, which in turn can help heal the cancer. Again, it's not all cases, but we've actually seen it quite a bit with ayahuasca.
I've read that it really helps people get started with the healing process with cancer, that
Hmm.
that you can't expect it to heal you after one session, but I think it unlocks your body's potential to heal
Yeah.
it faster and ultimately hopefully get rid of it.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap it up, do you have any like dates that are coming up that people can come down to your center? Do you guys know what your 2021 schedule is looking like?
Yeah, we're so excited. It's been such a long pause this year, and we're finally announcing dates um, tomorrow. I know this podcast won't be up for a bit still, but yeah, so the dates will be on the website. We're going to be posting the initial 5 retreats, and then we'll have more dates posted as we go. But we'll be starting up in March, so we're really
Okay.
excited to be, hosting guests again and sharing in this experience.
Wow, I'm sure you guys are really excited. Yeah, this whole
Uh,
pandemic has just been very long and it really impacted everybody and you know, people trying to get this healing, I'm sure are waiting.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, this has been a huge wake up call on so many levels for people with everything that's happened this year. And I think that, this process with the medicine, ayahuasca is going to continue to play such a pivotal role in this continuing and ongoing awakening with humanity. And I think that more and more people are going to be ready to do something like this, because in a way it's a bit of a fast track program. And it opens you up. And so it's like, and as you are opened up from this experience, you're going to be vibrating on a different level, and you're going to be attracting new potentials and opportunities into your life, which is just going to accelerate so much goodness. Um, maybe on that note, I'll speak a little bit about integration as well, because I feel like it's such a vital part and of
Yeah.
the transformation that happens as a whole. But coming to the jungle to do ayahuasca is kind of three parts. There's the preparation for it, which is really important, and then you have this intensive series of ceremonies where a lot of things are just being rearranged on the inside, right? But then how are you going to integrate all of that for the long-term benefits of this medicine? Because that's what it's for. We come not just for the event itself, but to really be able to change our lives and to change our perspectives and how we can actually contribute to the world in a new way that's going to benefit everyone and
Yeah.
everything. So, the integration will last again weeks, months, if not years after the ceremonies. And at times people can feel tested during these times. More purging can happen. The ayahuasca can continue to work with people. It can work with you in your dreams. It can work with you on the physical level, even just the mental and emotional level. There might be more releasing happening. But it's really about like shifting values as well and really reflecting on what's serving you and what's not serving you. So I feel like, again, as this whole vibratory structure has changed within your being, you're going to be attracting new things, which means you may be having to let go of other things. So we see friendships change, sometimes relationships will fall away, so new ones can come in their place. Maybe you have a career change or you have a change in the location in which you live. But again, it's just being able to go into these deep self-reflective states and really honoring your process no matter how hard it may get. And again, realizing everything comes back to your perception. And so I think that's the key to a lot of this, because some people may go through, a challenging bout of emotions or whatever it may be in their life after ayahuasca, and it's because everything is trying to shift and adjust to the new you. And so just to, remember that it's all a normal part of the experience and not to judge it and to know that it's actually serving. And that's why it's important to have a support system. So, for the groups that come, they'll often all keep in touch, do Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, and to be support, because just being able to talk it out with someone that understands, what you're going through and has been through
Yeah.
ayahuasca is so helpful. And myself, I offer integration coaching. We have other people on our staff that do that. So that's an important part of the process as a whole, to really be able to reap all the benefits that can come from this experience.
Yeah, it sounds like when you come home that you'll have a much better sense of clarity in your life and what actually is important in your life and what you should prioritize and things that you should let go just come to front and center right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's sometimes it can take a little bit of time, but again, it's cultivating that trust too within yourself. And I think going through ayahuasca and cultivating that trust through the experience itself will then you'll be able to do so in your own life, and how to make decisions that you feel are going to serve you in the best way and going forward. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
If well, while we finish up here, for our listeners and viewers, how do they find you? How do they find the center? What is the information that you can provide to them?
Yeah, so our website is nameakaya.org. So I'm sure we could add that in the description box
Yep, I'll put it in the
as
show
well.
notes.
And yeah, so that's our website. And then we also have an Instagram page under Nameakaya and a YouTube channel. So there's a lot more resources and information there as well.
Well, after this interview, I'm convinced I'm gonna come try it, and
You
it's gonna
are.
be at your center 100%.
We would love to have you. Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
gonna put my full trust in you guys, but I'm gonna make it happen this year. You can count on that.
Yay, so happy to hear.
Well, Jill, it's been a real pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for taking your time and explaining the healing from this plant. And if anybody has any questions, I'll put I'll put Jill's information in the show notes, and you can reach out to her. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer anything that you're wondering. And stay tuned because I'll probably do a video when I'm there, so you guys will get to see what happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. It's been a pleasure sharing all of this information today.
Great. Well, we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.